size of our adversary is not what you should fear.
Set up a perimeter around the objective. Do not let them take it. Finish the mission. Airstrike ready.
In the mid-2010s, competitive multiplayer shooters were operating on a principle of instant gratification. Games like Call of Duty and Overwatch were designed around micro-arenas, low time to kill, and the immediate safety net of the respawn tracker. You were thrown into a fight every 5 seconds, and if you died, you were back on your feet in 5 more. The industry had fully automated the combat cycle. Then, a standalone modder named Brendan Green, known online as PlayerUnknown, partnered with a South Korean studio to release a game that threw out the safety net entirely. PUBG, Battlegrounds. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds didn't just top the Steam charts. It created a massive cultural gold rush, inventing the fundamental mechanics and vocabulary of the multi-billion-dollar battle royale genre. Before Fortnite added building, and before Apex Legends added character abilities, PUBG established the raw, unyielding mathematics of survival. It did it by weaponizing permanent consequence, simulating strict ballistics, and converting a massive physical space into a closing vice. This is how they engineered the drop. To understand why PUBG completely shocked the gaming industry, you have to look at how it forced asymmetry onto the player base. In almost every other competitive multiplayer shooter, balance is guaranteed. You choose your class or your loadout in a menu before you spawn, ensuring you have the exact same tools as your enemy. PUBG completely rejected this equality. It forced 100 players to drop onto a massive island with absolutely nothing but the clothes on their backs. By stripping the player of their weapons, Brendan Green turned the act of scavenging into a high-stress economic game governed by 3 rules. The flight vector paradigm. The trajectory of the cargo plane was randomly generated every single match. Players had to instantly calculate distance, trajectory, and risk versus reward. Do you drop early into a high-tier loot zone, like Pochinki, knowing 20 other players are landing next to you? Or do you glide far away to a remote village, sacrificing high-tier armor for absolute safety? The RNG inventory scramble. Weapons and armor were scattered randomly across floor grids. This mechanic created intense early game panic. A top-tier competitive player could land in a house next to a casual novice. But if the novice found an Uzi and the competitive pro found a flashbang, the power dynamic was instantly flipped. The modular attachment suite. Weapons found on the floor were intentionally raw, kicking wildly with unmanageable recoil. Players had to scavenge for specific modular attachments, suppressors, vertical grips, and scopes. The firearm wasn't a static tool. It was a jigsaw puzzle that you assembled in real time while hiding behind cover. This loot loop completely recontextualized the value of a weapon. A simple assault rifle wasn't a default right anymore. It was a hard-earned prize that could be completely stripped away from you if you let your guard down for a single second. Managing a 100-player lobby on a map that covers 64 square kilometers introduces a massive pacing problem. If players are free to hide anywhere they want, a single match could easily last for hours without anyone ever seeing an opponent. To solve this, PUBG implemented its most iconic spatial mechanic, the blue zone. The blue zone is a glowing wall of electrical energy that actively constricts the playable boundaries of the map at set intervals. It completely automated the pacing of the match through mathematical geometry. The concentric safe zone. At the start of a phase, a white circle is drawn on the map, designating the next safe zone. Players outside this boundary are given a literal countdown timer. When the timer hits 0, the blue wall begins closing in. If you are caught inside the blue zone, you take continuous damage over time. The choke point metagame. Because the circle's positioning is random, the blue zone acts as an organic engine for conflict. It forces players out of safe camping positions and drives them down specific bottlenecks. Bridges, open fields, and hillsides instantly transform into deadly gatekeeping zones where players inside the white circle wait to ambush desperate survivors running from the blue. The acceleration variable. With each progressive phase, the circle gets smaller, the blue wall moves faster, and the damage over time variable increases exponentially. By the final phases, the blue zone becomes an instant death sentence. The blue zone transformed the environment itself into an active predator. It meant that you could never get comfortable. You weren't just fighting the other 99 players on the island. You were constantly running from a closing kinetic vice that was dragging you toward an inevitable execution point. When competing shooters like Fortnite arrived, they embraced accessibility with arcade-style gunplay. But PUBG retained its crown among hardcore enthusiasts because of its uncompromising dedication to realistic military simulation. It borrowed its gunplay DNA straight from hyper-complex tactical simulators like Arma, making every single firefight an exercise in ballistic physics and acoustic awareness. PUBG achieved this intense level of gunplay realism by mastering two precise sensory engines. The acoustic bullet split. In most games, sound is instantaneous. In PUBG, bullets travel faster than the speed of sound. If a sniper fires at you from 400 meters away, you will first hear the localized crack of the bullet passing your ears, and only later will you hear the distant thud of the actual gunshot from the muzzle. Players had to train their brains to ignore the immediate crack and listen for the delayed echo to pinpoint the shooter's exact coordinate vector. The full simulation ballistics engine, projectiles weren't just subject to simple gravity drop. They were subject to drag coefficient variables. A bullet would actively lose velocity the further it traveled, dealing less damage upon impact. Furthermore, weapons possessed intense asymmetric recoil patterns that required physical mouse-pulling compensation to stay on target. This mechanical weight completely redefined the value of a life. Because you only had one life per match, and because an invisible sniper could eliminate you from half a mile away before you ever heard the gunshot, the game forced you into a state of total situational immersion. Every dash across a road, every peek over a ridge, and every single footstep you made was a high-stakes calculation. In the long history of competitive multiplayer design, the concept of winning was usually shared. You won as a team, or you filled the scoreboard with dozens of kills over a match. But PUBG introduced the industry to an intoxicating, deeply isolating feeling. The absolute isolation of being the last one standing. The systems he engineered permanently broke the industry out of its micro-arena comfort zone. The concept of the dropping plane, the shrinking safe circle, the color-coded loot tiers, these are no longer features unique to a single indie survival title. They are the default global infrastructure of the modern live service landscape. Every time you drop from a sky vehicle into a massive map with your friends, scan an open horizon for a distant tracer round, or feel your pulse race as the safe zone shrinks down to a final, desperate standoff. You are playing inside the massive geometric arena that a gritty, unyielding sandbox constructed from scratch. Thanks for watching. If you want to continue exploring the hidden mechanics and grand design histories of the software that reshaped our digital battlegrounds, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Let me know your absolute first chicken dinner memory in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next drop.